My former spouse, who had previously been unfaithful and had abandoned our family, suddenly reappeared at my doorstep with a child from another man's household, seeking to resume our familial relationship. I promptly closed the door in her face. To provide some context, my former spouse Angela, aged 36, and I, aged 37, had met when we were in our mid-20s. In our early 20s, we were colleagues at the same firm. After 2 years of dating, we married. Over the next 3 years, we had 2 daughters, aged 9 and 7. The second pregnancy was unplanned, and my wife was not pleased. However, she did not terminate the pregnancy, even though I had told her that I would be supportive of her decision to do so. After the birth of our first daughter, our relationship remained strong. We were as in love as we could be, but that changed after the second pregnancy. She became increasingly moody and irritable, frequently picking on me or our eldest child. I attributed this to the hormonal changes and attempted to accommodate this new version of Angela. However, the situation deteriorated further, and my daughter and I learned to navigate our interactions with caution. I assumed responsibility for the majority of household tasks, despite her role as the primary caregiver. The abbreviation @- is used in this context. The woman in question was a homemaker who had resigned from her position following the birth of her first child. She subsequently assumed responsibility for all domestic duties, including childcare, while her husband worked. When she became pregnant for a second time, she sought the assistance of a housekeeper, citing exhaustion as the reason for her inability to perform these tasks. I concurred with this decision, despite the financial implications, as I was not earning sufficient income at the time. Given that I was not earning sufficient income at the time, I agreed to hire a housekeeper. I was concerned about inconveniencing Angela, particularly during her pregnancy. I assumed that she would resume her role of caring for the house and children during the day after our second daughter was born. It is important to note that I was not one of those husbands who did not contribute to household tasks. Upon returning from work, I endeavored to assist in any way possible, despite the exhaustion I experienced from my occupational duties following the birth of our younger daughter. I anticipated that she would require a few months to recuperate, after which she would resume her usual demeanor and we could resume our previous lifestyle. However, several months passed with no discernible change in her behavior. She remained as irritable and uncooperative as before, and she did not engage in any domestic tasks. Instead, she spent her days at home, watching television. She did not play with the children or take them to the park, as I had requested. I did not intend to convey resentment, but I felt that way because I was working long hours at my job and she was not fulfilling her responsibilities at home. Additionally, the financial burden was significant. I was obliged to pay for a housekeeper to perform all the cooking, cleaning, and other miscellaneous household chores. I was also responsible for all other expenses. I wanted to save money for our daughter's future, but this was becoming increasingly difficult because Angela was unwilling to assist me in any way. After almost 6 months since our younger daughter's birth, I concluded that our situation could not continue in this manner. I was compelled to engage in a discussion with Angela. I was aware that this would be a challenging conversation, so I requested that my parents watch our daughters for a day. They consented to this arrangement. I then proceeded to inform Angela that I was aware of her fatigue, given that she had undergone 2 pregnancies. However, I needed her assistance, and I requested that she work with me. I explained to her that the cost of employing a housekeeper was becoming prohibitive for us, and that I required her assistance. To honor her word and resume at least some of the household chores, with the intention of renegotiating and lowering the housekeeper's salary and saving money, she was opposed to the idea and rejected it immediately, citing her busy schedule of childcare and her belief that I should start earning more income. I informed her that I was already doing my utmost, but that she also needed to do her part if we were to salvage our marriage. I also highlighted the fact that she was not adequately supervising the children, as I believed she would often allow them to watch television with her for extended periods while she engaged in unsuitable forms of entertainment. This was a situation that the housekeeper had previously encountered. I was informed of this conversationally, and it became apparent that mentioning it was a misstep. She became visibly agitated and accused me of spying on her through the housekeeper. She proceeded to launch a verbal assault against me, stating that she was no longer willing to tolerate being treated in this manner. She asserted that she was done being pushed around and forced to do all the work while I did nothing but sit at a desk for a few hours each day. After a few hours of discussion, she asserted that I was to blame for our financial situation and that it was unfair that I had to ask her for assistance, given that I was the man of the house. Her logic was severely flawed, and she was merely grasping at straws to justify her own inaction throughout the day. I was the one who was perceived as the irrational one for expecting her to contribute to the household. I expected her to contribute and assume her share of domestic responsibilities. However, our differences in expectations led to a heated argument, during which she called me a loser and a man who could not afford to be with a woman like her. In response, I accused her of being a lazy cow who had already failed at being a good mother, given how scared our eldest daughter was of her. I also asserted that she was failing at being a wife as well. She then proceeded to shove me with considerable force, causing me to lose my balance and fall back onto the coffee table with a resounding thud, resulting in the shattering of the glass and my own injury. I was subsequently rushed to the emergency room. Throughout this ordeal, she continued to express her remorse and express her sorrow. Fortunately, the injuries I sustained were limited to my back and were relatively minor. However, I was left with the concern that I might have sustained more serious injuries. Furthermore, I lost confidence in Angela's ability to maintain composure in such situations. I informed her of my concerns. She was required to relocate because I lacked confidence in her ability to interact with children in a safe and responsible manner. There was a possibility that she might lose her temper around them, which could result in her hurting them. I informed my parents to take care of our daughters until Angela was ready to resume her role. For a week, she continued to express remorse and stated that she would never let this happen again. However, I had lost all trust in her. I considered filing for a divorce, but she pleaded with me to give her another chance. I was urged to give her a chance, and by the end of the week, we had concluded that she would reside with her parents for an undetermined period and undergo therapy. Only upon receiving a clean bill of health from a medical professional would I allow her to return to our home. It was evident that something was profoundly amiss with her, as individuals in a state of happiness do not exhibit such behavior. However, she was willing to work on it. I also did not want my daughters to grow up without their mother, so I agreed not to get divorced and give our marriage a second chance. We were also undergoing marriage counseling while we were living separately. However, this ultimately proved to be ineffective, as she ended up cheating on me. My parents had moved in with me to assist with my daughters while Angela was away. While residing with her parents, we attended weekly marriage counseling sessions. Initially, there was a perceptible improvement in our situation. I also maintained communication with her therapist, who informed me that she had been experiencing postpartum depression. However, she was gradually regaining her mental stability. One of her symptoms was anger management, which had previously been absent. However, it reached a point of uncontrollability when she shoved me. This incident served as a wake-up call for both of us. This situation persisted for approximately a year, until approximately the 6-month mark. At the 6-month mark, I permitted her to visit our daughters under my supervision. She was gradually regaining her former self, and I was gratified to observe that our circumstances were gradually improving and that we might be able to make it work. However, without any explanation, she ceased attending our counseling sessions. She also ceased responding to me. Nevertheless, I was aware that she was making progress, as her therapist kept me informed. This was perplexing to me, and for weeks I attempted to engage in conversation with her, but she would simply ignore me and assert that she needed time for herself. After nearly 3 months of her avoidance, I decided to pay her a visit at her parents' residence. I had not done so previously because her parents did not like me and blamed me for driving their daughter to act out. They believed that I was the one who had driven their daughter crazy and made her act out like that. Consequently, she had told me that it would be better if I did not visit her while she was living with them. She said that it would lead to a lot of drama, which was definitely the last thing that we needed. However, I broke that rule and visited them anyway. This was because she had been acting distant and blowing off counseling sessions. Despite her sporadic appearances, she appeared disinterested, making it challenging to comprehend her demeanor. When I attempted to engage in conversation with her in person, on the phone, or even via text, she would often respond that everything was fine. However, her behavior indicated that there might be underlying issues. On the day that I arrived at her parents' residence, I anticipated that she would be present. However, upon inquiring about her whereabouts, I was informed by her parents that they were prohibited from disclosing this information and that I was to leave. I could discern that they derived pleasure from this situation and I had a bad feeling about it, so I decided to call Angela while standing in front of her parents' house. I attempted to contact her on several occasions, but she did not answer. As time passed, I became increasingly paranoid. I decided to sneak around the house and somehow gain access by myself. I went around to the backyard because I knew that her parents usually kept the kitchen door open. However, I did not even need to go that far because I spotted Angela sitting on the swing that her parents had in their backyard. Unfortunately, she was seated with her back to me, engaged in a physical act with a male individual whom I did not recognize. It had been a considerable period of time since I had last observed them, yet the memory of that event has remained indelibly imprinted in my mind. It was the most traumatic experience of my life, and I have been unable to erase it from my consciousness even to this day. The male companion of Drew, whom she was making out with, immediately recognized me upon my arrival and, by the time Angela turned around, I had already begun walking back to my vehicle. She attempted to stop me, but I was unable to hear her due to my emotional state. I was taken aback by her sudden attempt to grab me, but I managed to shake her off and firmly dissuade her from touching me. I promptly returned to my vehicle and began the return journey home. I obstructed her at every opportunity, ensuring that she would have no opportunity to explain. I informed my parents that I wished for them to seek legal counsel for me and informed them of the events that had transpired during my visit to Angela's parents' residence. I did not see her or hear from her until we were required to meet with the court-appointed mediator for the purpose of negotiating the terms of our divorce settlement. I had effectively severed all ties with her. By that point, I had become a robot, functioning solely for the benefit of my daughters. I had completely shut down emotionally, unable to feel anything, even when I learned that Angela was terminating her parental rights. She had decided that she no longer wanted to be with us and wanted to be with Sean, a man I will refer to here as, let's call him Sean. I had seen her with him the previous day. They had grown apart after high school, but they had reconnected when she moved back in with her parents. It would appear that she had fallen in love with him. Her parents also supported this, which is probably why they had been right about her making out with him in their backyard despite being a married woman with 2 children. It seems that they had always wanted her to end up with Sean, and they were happy that Angela was finally choosing herself and her own happiness. It is as if she had never been capable of doing anything other than that. The divorce was a long process because, even though she had been cheating on me, she still wanted to qualify. Regarding alimony, my lawyer and I engaged in a lengthy legal battle to ensure that she would not receive any compensation from the divorce, as I had been the primary financial supporter for an extended period. While she engaged in leisure activities at home, I bore the responsibility of providing for the family. After 5 years, the divorce proceedings were finalized, and we achieved our objective of ensuring that she received no financial benefits from the dissolution of our marriage. The period during which I was navigating the divorce proceedings was among the most challenging in my life. However, I was determined to persevere. As the primary caregiver for my daughter, I was responsible for her well-being and that of my parents, who were invaluable sources of support. I am immensely grateful to them for their unwavering assistance during a challenging period in my life. 5 years have passed since the divorce, and while initially perceived as a significant setback, I now view it as a pivotal turning point. It has shaped my life in ways I could not have imagined had I remained in the relationship. Subsequently, I have experienced a significant improvement in my circumstances. I have relocated to a larger residence, as my income has increased, allowing me to allocate financial resources solely towards myself and my daughter. My parents reside in close proximity and visit periodically. I have formed a supportive network of friends who care about me and my daughter. I am grateful for these positive developments and recognize that they contribute to my overall well-being. However, I am also mindful of the challenges that Angela's recent reappearance has posed. I was at school and preparing to leave for work when I opened the door to find Angela accompanied by a young boy, estimated to be approximately 3 or 4 years of age. I immediately recognized the child as Angela's son. I was taken aback by her unexpected appearance and was still processing the situation when she began to cry and stated that she was there to apologize and rectify the situation with me. She informed me that she was finally prepared to resume her role as a family member and to rebuild our marriage. I was incredulous that she had returned after such a lengthy interval and was now seeking to salvage our marriage. I was unprepared for this development and felt compelled to make a decision on the spot. I chose to shut the door and turn her away, as I was not inclined to engage in this latest initiative. Before doing so, I informed her that her actions had effectively severed the marital bond. I had ceased to be her husband on the day she had been unfaithful to me with Sean. The divorce was merely a legal necessity, and she had already relinquished custody of her daughter, therefore, had no right to refer to us as her family after I stated that I had no desire for her to be present on my property. I would have been justified in cursing her out, but I refrained from doing so because of the young child I could hear crying outside my door for a couple of minutes after I had shut the door. I decided to ignore it and went off to work. I tried to avoid thinking about it because that would have been counterproductive. A mere weakening of my resolve would have been insufficient to prevent the occurrence of this event. I had nearly succeeded in forgetting that Angela had even shown up at my house. However, as soon as I returned home from work, I received a call from my parents demanding an explanation as to why I had turned her away. They informed me that Angela had contacted them after I had turned her away and shut the door on her face, resulting in her being devastated. My parents stated that they were the ones who had given her my new address and told me to visit her since she was in the process of following my divorce from Sean. I was finally afforded the opportunity to rectify the situation with myself. I was informed that Angela had contacted them approximately 1 month prior, and that this was a long-standing plan. My parents believed that it was time for me to consider my children's needs, as my daughter required a mother figure. They felt that Angela was the ideal candidate for this role, and therefore decided to give her another chance. They informed her of my whereabouts and instructed her on how to contact me. However, I was extremely displeased with their decision, as I felt that it was not within their right to forgive her. I was given the opportunity to reconsider my stance without my consent. It could have had serious consequences if the children had been present. Their actions were highly irresponsible. I informed them of my displeasure, but they refused to acknowledge their mistake. They had previously assisted me during my divorce by caring for the children. They continue to do so on an occasional basis. They believed that whether or not I wanted to reconcile with Angela was up to me. They maintained that they had an equal right. In determining the best course of action for the children, I was compelled to maintain their well-being. I deemed their assumption that I should allow Angela back into my life to be misguided. While I held them in high regard and was grateful for their assistance during my divorce proceedings, I did not believe it was within their purview to dictate my decisions regarding Angela. We engaged in a heated exchange, during which they asserted that I was the one who was out of line and was being selfish by not giving Angela another chance. They asserted that they had conducted thorough research and were confident that she had undergone a significant transformation. They contended that she deserved to be included in my daughter's lives, despite my objections. They argued that it was insulting to believe that they would put my daughters or me in harm's way. They accused me of being arrogant for not accepting that they needed their mother. It has been several days since the incident, and I do not believe that I was out of line or selfish. I have given this a great deal of thought. A second chance at being a mother. 1 week has passed since Angela showed up at my door with her son. Recently, I discovered the truth about her relationship with my parents. The situation is so disturbing that I am unsure where to begin and I am still struggling to process it. It is difficult to comprehend how all of them have betrayed me without batting an eye. Not only had they informed Angela of my new address, but they had also been in contact with her throughout the period following the divorce. I had severed all contact with her following the dissolution of our marriage, but they had not done so, as they believed that she would eventually change her mind. They did not communicate with her frequently, only once a month, but this was sufficient for me to feel betrayed. Shah had obtained a signed agreement from Angela, which granted him the rights to make decisions regarding her and her children. My parents informed me that Angela had been presented with a choice between abandoning her family and pursuing a new life with Sean or maintaining contact with her children and attempting to retain custody. They indicated that this was a difficult decision for her to make, but she ultimately chose Sean. My parents informed me that Angela had contacted them shortly after I filed for divorce to inform them of her situation and request assistance in maintaining contact with her children. She had indicated that she felt pressured by both of us and that, regardless of the outcome of the divorce proceedings, she would not be able to see her children. I was seeking full custody with supervised visitation rights, while Sean was advocating for sole custody. My parents advised her to abandon her children entirely, even if she did fight for custody and went against Sean. The probability of her obtaining partial custody was minimal, given the circumstances of our divorce and her history of exhibiting temperamental issues. Fighting for custody seemed an inefficient use of her time and resources. There was a significant possibility that she could lose both Sean and custody of our daughters if she decided to fight. This was before my parents subsequently intervened, and she met with them privately. She implored them to allow her to maintain contact with her daughters and to serve as a mediator between them. She was aware that once she relinquished her rights, she would no longer have any visitation rights, let alone supervision. However, my parents would, and they planned to exploit this. They successfully did so, and they deceived me for an extended period by going behind my back to allow Angela to meet our daughters. They did so because Angela's situation resonated with them and they realized that they could not ethically continue to separate a mother from her children. However, this did not affect their conscience. They informed me that whenever I would drop off our children at their house, they would invite Angela over and allow her to spend time with them. My children never informed me that they were meeting their mother because my parents would bribe them with toys and candy. They were given toys and candy as incentives to remain silent about the matter. When I inquired about their activities at their grandparents' house, my daughters informed me that they engaged in games with my grandparents and their friend. I presumed that they were referring to my parents' actual friends, whom I was already aware of. However, it transpired that my parents had instructed them to refer to their mother in the event that I inquired about their day. I was astonished to discover that my daughters had been deceiving me as well. However, I chose to forgive them, recognizing that they were merely children and that Angela and my parents had exerted considerable influence and intimidation to ensure their silence. When I confronted my daughters about their meetings with their mother, they began to cry and informed me that they were afraid of being punished by God if they told me the truth. Angela and it is evident that my parents had instilled in their children the notion that there would be dire consequences should they divulge the truth. This would explain their initial reluctance to provide a clear answer when questioned about their activities. Additionally, I recognize that I have been remiss in not inquiring about the identity of my daughter's friends, as this could have prevented the involvement of individuals like Angela, who posed a potential threat. I am now committed to rectifying this omission. I have since obtained a restraining order against all of them, and I have written proof of this. My parents sent me an email a couple of days after my fight with them. They believed that the email would make me realize how desperate Angela was to remain a mother to her daughters without losing the alleged love of her life. They thought that this would somehow make me forgive everyone involved. However, all that it did was make me realize that I came to understand that everyone in this situation was untrustworthy and that I could no longer rely on anyone. It is also noteworthy that Angela signed away her parental rights and was forced to meet our children in secret, as if it were a criminal act. This was due to Sean's refusal to allow her contact with her former family. He was her supposed one true love. However, even they were getting divorced, and all of that proved to be futile. They even had a son together, but according to my parents, Sean had lost interest in Angela and their child due to a job opportunity that he was pursuing. Angela had recently resumed her professional career, and their son had started kindergarten in the local area. This prompted her to decline the relocation, which had been a source of contention between them for an extended period. The situation reached a critical point 3 months ago when Sean informed Angela of his decision to accept the job and move out. He expressed a lack of interest in being a family man, indicating that he would have to sacrifice his own future and happiness to accommodate her desires. This was intended to elicit sympathy for Angela, but it only served to elicit feelings of vindication. I have already consulted with my lawyer and filed a petition for a restraining order. My daughter and I have also taken this step. I have had a thorough discussion with my children about the situation and informed them that they will no longer be seeing their grandparents or their mother in the future. They have accepted this decision for the time being, but we intend to continue therapy in order to resolve the matter. It is likely that this has been a challenging experience for them over the past 5 years, and it is clear that it has been difficult for them to adjust to the situation. However, this is now resolved. Update 2. I would like to express my gratitude to everyone who has offered their support and concern. I am grateful for the concern and support expressed by numerous individuals. My daughters, my parents, and Angela have been served with restraining orders and are scheduled to appear in court in a few days. I am unaware of their feelings regarding this matter, as I have blocked them on every possible platform and have also instructed my friends not to speak to them, in case they contact them. I have also increased the security around my house. I have been residing at my residence for a few days, and I have been working remotely. I had previously informed the authorities at my daughter's educational institution about the circumstances. Initially, I had not intended to allow them to attend school for a few days, but I was concerned that their education might be negatively impacted by the actions of Angel and my parents. Consequently, the teachers are now responsible for monitoring their activities and ensuring that only I am permitted to pick them up after school. I am taking every measure to ensure that it is my intention that they shall not be able to gain access to us. Thus far, this has been effective, and I am hopeful that, following the issuance of a restraining order, they will continue to refrain from contact. Update 3. I have obtained a restraining order, which will remain in effect for the next 5 years. This order requires that the 3 individuals in question maintain a specified distance from me and my daughter. Failure to comply with this order may result in severe consequences. I am currently maintaining all I implemented additional security measures for a period of time because the last time I saw them, they appeared visibly upset. I am reluctant to take any risks. My daughters and I are attending regular family counseling sessions, and I believe that we will make significant progress in the coming months. We have already made considerable progress. My primary objective at this time is for my daughters to be happy, and I appreciate your support and positive thoughts.